It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday podcast as we get ready to kick off a great sports weekend. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host broadcasting from left field with his opinions, the venerable John Riley, and we welcome you as we get ready for a great sports weekend. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. If you've got projects for 2024, thinking about ideas for 2025, you will need materials, you want some consultant help, think about them. They do it all. DIXIELINE Lumber, in business for more than 100 years in San Diego. John Riley, good afternoon. Boy, what a great sports weekend. Have we got a few topics on the table? We're going to just fill up this whole bulletin board.
Yeah, I mean, we're chock loaded here. Baseball, football, basketball, college sports. We're even going to talk more Mike Tyson.
We got a lot of different angles here. Before we start, a couple of business notations. You like sports? We want you to be part of our team. We ask you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time with the podcast. And we want you to subscribe. Therefore, when you subscribe, you get alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel, which happens quite often. Second item, you're on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team. Just follow me. At Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. I put a lot of stuff on X, on Twitter, on social media. You like sports? Check my website. I write on it every day of the week. You will not believe the volume of information that's available first thing every morning as you have your cup of coffee. And when you go to my website, right on the homepage, there's an orange box. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You get prizes, surprises, and a bunch of bonus coverage that we make available to you. And when we're done with this podcast, John Riley invented it. You love it, compliment him. You hate it, blame him. It's called Fans Forum. John, describe how the Fans Forum works on this podcast.
Yeah, this is your chance to get involved. You have a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Just drop your take in the live chat, Facebook, X, or YouTube. And it is X. We don't say Twitter All-Stars anymore. It's the X All-Stars. So if you're on Facebook, X, or YouTube, you can get involved in Fans Forum.
Okay, we had a lot of things to cover. We're going a lot of different directions. And let's start because we get such an unbelievable following on our podcast on live stream from baseball fans. Let's just start with baseball. Where do you want to go first?
Well, this whole Jackson Merrill thing, I mean, he got screwed, do you think? What do you think, Lee?
Nice headline. Snubs and then signings. We're going to cover it all as it relates to the Padres, the Dodgers, and then the Angels. Let's start with Padre baseball. Please explain to me the snub of anything related to San Diego Padre baseball because I just don't understand it. Postseason awards handed out this week. Not here. Not in America's finest city. Not to a Friar. Rookie of the Year candidate Jackson Merrill got snubbed. Manager of the Year candidate Mike Shildt got snubbed. I have no argument with Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, that was a spectacular season. When you do a deeper dive into what the first-round draft pick accomplished after just a half season in the minor leagues, he got to the show. He pitched 23 games, had a 1.96 ERA, 170 strikeouts, the second most ever by a rookie his first year in Major League Baseball dating back to 1913. So I don't have a beef with Paul Skeens, but he pitched 23 games. Jackson Merrill played 154 games. Mm-hmm. I call him Pigpen because there's always dirt on the front of his uniform. Jackson Merrill, 292 batting average, 24 home runs, 90 ribbies, 16 stolen bases, near Gold Glove center field. Skeens got 23 votes. Jackson Merrill got 7. That's kind of surprising that the rest of Major League Baseball didn't pay attention. And then there was Manager of the Year. And all these guys had to go through all the landmines of a baseball season. Pat Murphy of Milwaukee won it. He got 27 votes. He survived the loss of 3 starting pitchers through the free agency and injury. He survived the loss of his 300 hitter, Christian Yelich, midway through the season. And they had a really good season in Milwaukee. Pat Murphy did a pretty good job. But so did Mike Shildt. How does Murphy get 27 votes and Shildt gets only 1 first-place vote? I mean, Hilt had to fix the clubhouse. Hilt was in a much tougher division. Hilt had 2 starting pitchers go down for extended periods. His star third baseman missed a beginning of the season, wasn't the same player till about midseason. Then he lost his shortstop. I thought he did an admirable job. And by the way, he came within 1 win of going to the National League Championship Series in the toughest division of baseball. So I don't know why Padres get no recognition at all. Jackson Merrill finishes so far back, Rookie of the Year. Schilt was hardly ever recognized for any of the accomplishments. Is it because the Padres have no winning tradition? They haven't won bleep? Is it they have no national following? Period, exclamation point, because everything is about New York or Los Angeles? Is it just an absolute lack of respect because they're in a small market pocket of the country? I'm just absolutely stunned. Give me your response.
Well, we're talking about Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. I mean, it's not like those are major media markets in the first place. But, you know, Pat Murphy's a good dude. He was the manager here for a short time with the Padres. And it just seems like they just wait for these guys. Like, oh, it's his turn. Because Mike Shilt's already won it before. And we could say it's the East Coast bias. As far as Paul Skeens and Jackson Merrill goes, yeah, Skeens was fantastic. You can't deny it. But come on. I mean, Jackson Merrill won the Silver Slugger as a center fielder. He finished, I think, in the top 6 or 7 in batting average in the National League. I mean, the dude raked all year, not just for a part of the season.
154 games worth of a season.
Exactly. And so many clutch home runs in the 8th and 9th inning, and the great defense in center field after he had never played the position. Now, okay, you're going to say Skeens wins the thing, but 23-7 as the vote, I think that's a little bit of East Coast bias there.
A lot of people not paying attention. So we go to the Dodgers. Let's just talk about the Dave Roberts scenario. No votes. Dave Roberts, no votes, manager of the year. He got 3 third-place votes. That's all he got. And this is a guy that managed egos. This is a guy that managed his team to another division title in what became a very tough division. This is a guy who survived the loss of every one of his starting pitchers because of this rash of injuries, this epidemic that nearly destroyed the Dodgers staff, and they still finished first, and they went to the playoffs, and they got to the World Series, and they got the ring. He got no first-place votes at all. Can somebody please explain that to me? John, representing all the uneducated out there, how does Dave Roberts not get any first-place votes manager of the year, considering not the payroll, not the fact they had Ohtani, but considering all the adversity he had to face and the challenges of a clubhouse of rich men with personalities and egos?
I got to bust out like that little mini violin and play my sympathy music for Dave Roberts. Come on. I mean, they won the World Series. I mean, that's legit in and of itself. But, you know, for the longest time, Dodger fan wanted to fire Dave Roberts, said he was an awful manager, made terrible decisions in his bullpen. And now Dodger fan is upset that they didn't win National League Manager of the Year. I mean, come on.
So we got that. Third team, Angels. They have been the most active team in free agency, waiting for all the big names to sign, but they've been active. Obviously, we talked about the acquisition of Kyle Hendricks. Then we talked about the acquisition of Travis d'Arnaud. We talked about the trade that rents them Jorge Soler, home run hitter. Angels are about to make a move in Japan. The Angels are negotiating at this hour with top veteran starting pitcher Tomo Seguro, Yomiuri Giants. Now he's 35. He's been there a long time. He's an unrestricted free agent. There's no posting. There's no bonus fee, etc. 15-3, 1.67 ERA, control pitcher with ball movement. He's won 2 Cy Young Awards. People say his stuff resembles, I got to see it to believe it, resembles Greg Maddux, movement, etc. Angels are trying to get him signed ASAP, add him with Kyle Hendricks to the mix. So it's really intriguing from a Halo baseball standpoint that they're renting veteran, proven guys, major leagues here, Japanese league there, They still have money to spend. We'll wait and see if they're going to actually dive into free agency and go get a, quote, name star. But right now they're filling holes, and they're backfilling with guys who have had good careers with a fair amount of experience on maybe one-year rentals. So even though we've gone through this really bumpy road with Artie Moreno's ownership at Angel Stadium, this is a different approach. He kept the general manager, to the surprise of a lot of people. He's not given up on Mike Trout, trading Mike Trout. He's challenged Anthony Rendon to be a different baseball player going forward, though Rendon can't control all the injuries he's had. But now they're backfilling with proven commodity one-year rentals to see if they can fix this. And Artie Moreno, after he solved this TV contract issue with Diamond Sports, said, we will increase the payroll. Now, I don't know what the volume dollar is, but the payroll will go up. Reaction to the Hillos?
Reaction is actually, this makes a lot of sense. I can't believe I'm saying that about the Angels, but you don't have to give up anything other than money. It's not like you have to make a trade. They need pitching. This is like a legit starter in Japan. But you said, they've been backfilling, Travis d'Arnaud is the guy you brought up, and he's a catcher, right?
Yes.
But they have Logan O'Hoppe. I mean, so what are they thinking? Is O'Hoppe going to maybe play more first base?
A little bit. And the fact that there's wear and tear factor, O'Hoppe just kind of wore out at the end of the season, but he had, I thought, a fabulous first year. But there's an injury factor when you're behind home plate. You take a lot of foul balls and you wear down. And d'Arnaud hit 17 home runs in Atlanta and can be multiples of different guys there. So it's strength in numbers. And what they've done so far with these acquisitions, and if they get Sagano from Japan, that's just another guy who's proven he can do it at that level. So maybe you're renting guys that make you a more competitive, better roster. But we still have to see what happens when we get to the winter baseball meetings, whether there is a, quote, name free agent coming as they bump the payroll up. I like what they've done. Does it make them great? Hell no. It makes them better than they were last year, though, if each of these guys is totally healthy and back to where they were.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than they were, but they're not going to win the division with that lineup. So if you're an Angel fan, a diehard, you're probably feeling a little bit more optimistic, but, going for the Japanese pitchers makes sense.
Okay, prove it right there. Now, fans forum window is open. I don't care what team you root for, Padres, Dodgers, Angels. You got a comment, question, jump on board in the chat box right now. We go from that baseball topic to the next baseball topic, and it's got some real significant implications.
Yeah, I mean, it's updates on the MLB stadium in Tampa.
And updates on the baseball TV contract. Let me just put these on so I can get all these facts and figures out to you. This story just broke midweek. We're all aware of the collapse of the regional sports network, Bally Sports, Diamond Sports, all these clubs losing their chunk of their TV money. All started 2 years ago with what happened to the Padres. We all have talked on this podcast about Rob Manfred's idea about going to at one point he was calling it Team 30. They wanted the streaming rights to all major league teams, but that's not going to happen because the Yankees and the Mets, the Red Sox and the Dodgers, who have their own successful regional networks, are not giving them back to baseball. But Rob Manfred has a game plan that's targeting for 2028. The baseball TV contracts expire everywhere after 2027. Manfred's game plan, his blueprint, is to secure the streaming rights for the other 25 teams, then package them and go to the streaming kingpins in the industry. That's Amazon, DirecTV, Apple, and Network, and come up with a universal baseball streaming program in which you can pay and access and get your team with no blackouts whatsoever. So that's the big game plan. Now, that does not occur till after the 2027 TV contracts expire. They believe that this will be dynamic in terms of revenue streams. They're basing it on TV viewership has rocketed, team attendance has continued to go up, and at the same time, if everything is moved to the front to all the people who stream, baseball reserves the right to do specialty things with ESPN, Fox, and TBS. They could still keep, and the specialty things involve all-star games, playoff qualifying games, wild card games, and specialty weekends, interleague play matchups. That's what might show up on ESPN, Fox, and TBS. So behind the scenes, as the whole mess with Diamond Sports was falling apart and then they tried to rebuild it, baseball's been creating this blueprint of what they think this is going to work in 2028. And what they would do, this would also create a full revenue pie, and it would be split equally amongst the 25 teams that are part of the super streaming package that Manfred wants to launch in 2028. It would not be the Mariners get whatever the Mariners can get, and the Dodgers have their package, and the Yankees or the Red Sox on NESN. But the other 25 in the streaming, it'd be equal. And where'd that model come from? National Football League.
Yeah. Well, they figured it out. I mean, this is a good idea.
It's novel. It's going to be interesting to see, because baseball does not believe Diamond Sports is going to survive, even though they're going to operate this coming season in 2025 with a limited number of teams. So that's where we are on the baseball TV thing. By 2028, I think this whole landscape is going to look different. Second baseball topic, Tampa Bay. Rob Manfred sounded off at the owners' meeting yesterday. He will not allow the Tampa Bay Rays to have any discussion with any city about relocating. Not to Montreal, not to Nashville, not to Portland, Charlotte, Memphis, or anybody else that wants Major League Baseball. He says, we are stepping into the middle of this Tampa Bay Stadium situation on behalf of the fans on the Sun Coast. He says he's willing to give the city of St. Petersburg the calendar year of 2025 to figure out the financing. Now, Tampa Bay's got a huge problem because the owner now has gone public. Stuart Sternberg wrote a letter this week saying our new stadium's in jeopardy. We've lost our partner. We've lost the city. We've lost the county. They, of course, were going to help co-fund the new stadium in St. Petersburg on the other side of the bridge. St. Petersburg and the county have both tabled proposals to put their money into the pool so Sternberg could get the stadium built. It's about $700 million total in civic funds. Sternberg is paying $1.3 billion of his own money to make this work. But because Sternberg said everything is now in jeopardy because of the cancellation of the votes and the fact he said we no longer have these people as our partners in the project, Rob Manfred has interceded. He's going to give St. Petersburg one full calendar year from this week till a year from today to figure out the financing. To St. Petersburg, are you going to fix that dome stadium? St. Petersburg and Pinellas County, are you going to put your money back into the pot for the brand new Suncoast Dome that they want to build? Now, there's a sidebar issue. Sternberg goes public and says, we've lost our partnership. City said, you got 3 years left on your lease. Sternberg says, if you're not putting money in to fix Tropicana Field right now, you breach the lease and my team becomes a free agent. Manfred says, we'll give them a year to figure out what they're going to do financially. Says you can't talk to Montreal, you can't talk to Nashville at this point in time. So that's the update on the Tampa Bay Rays. And John's a proponent that how dare some rich man ask for civic funds to build any type of facility. But that's where we are still to a degree in the world of sports. Your reaction to where Tampa Bay is?
Well, first of all, you know that they didn't stop talking to Montreal. There's still back channels. There are still people talking about this sort of thing. But it is a valid point that you brought up, is if the city doesn't fix the roof, that's a breach of the lease. So I think they've got a legitimate beef there. Because, I mean, or else give them a discount on the rent or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is just a mess there. But do you think MLB really can work in Florida, or we've all just been fooled by this?
Well, they've tried, Now the Marlins have this shiny new stadium. Still nobody's going to Marlins games because they got a crap owner that won't spend any money. Now Sternberg has had a good organization, has put really good teams on the field, but they don't draw. That's the shocker of it all, that side of the Sunshine State, with all those retirees from the Northeast, don't come to see the Rays play. Their TV ratings are through the roof.
Right.
They're phenomenal. But it may be a byproduct of where the Tropicana Field Suncoast Dome is. No parking on the one side of the bridge. The new thing is in what's is going to be called the Gaslight District, which will be a huge entertainment develop on the other side of the St. Petersburg-Tampa Bridge. Lots of parking. So I think there's a big picture here, and the commissioner doesn't want to destroy the potential of the big picture at this point in time. But as St. Petersburg's mayor and the city council said last week, we have to spend our money to fix the water systems destroyed by the 2 hurricanes.
Yeah.
We've got bridges to repair, got all this other stuff, and baseball stadium, that's not quite priority compared to all the other things on the list. So I think there's a lot of truth in what's being said. So Manfred has kind of interjected and interceded. He says, Rays are going to play at Legends Field, Steinbrenner Stadium in Tampa. That'll be your 11,000 seat home for all the games. We saw that. Let St. Petersburg figure themselves out, and then we'll address what needs to be addressed going forward. I just don't know that baseball works in Tampa because nobody's ever responded, despite the fact that the product has been pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd sure love to see a franchise back in Montreal because I think the whole business climate in the province of Quebec and the dollar difference between U.S. and Canadian dollars is now so different. And Montreal's become a, quote, bigger regional area. I'd love to see, quote, the Expos go back there. Okay, I'm done preaching. You done?
I think I'm done. Yeah. I mean, it seems like Rob Manfred's like one crisis at a time.
Yeah, he's solved. No, he didn't actually solve the Oakland A's crisis, but the Oakland A's are playing Sacramento. But he says this Vegas stadium will get built. Okay, I'll believe that when I see it. But now the Oakland mess has been replaced by this Tampa mess, this God-given mess because of the hurricane damage to Tropicana Field. It's a stunning story. Okay, we go from that. You got a comment on that? The commissioner's intervention? You think Montreal's the right place for a franchise? Is there another locale you'd like to see? Jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open. Next baseball topic on the table. This is nonstop baseball talk right now.
Yeah, it is. Juan Soto. I mean, this guy's going to make bank, isn't he?
Oh, he's going to bank. There's no doubt about it. I think the burning question is, what kind of guy is going to the bank? That's the big issue. They've completed the first round of meetings with 6 different teams. Soto, now a week into free agency, has spent the entire week in Newport Beach with agent Scott Boras. The Yankees met with him. Hal Steinbrenner and his crew, led by Brian Cashman, came and spent 4 hours. It is interesting, though, because the inside baseball sources who have links to Steinbrenner are reporting the meeting was honest and the meeting was blunt. I said, wow. And I asked somebody in New York what the word blunt might mean as it relates to the Soto scenario. They're willing to pay Soto $40 million per year over an extended contract. They're not willing to go beyond that because that badly impacts their ability to go get other free agents, because Steinbrenner does not want to get back into this massive luxury tax thing. Scott Boras is only interested in 2 things: biggest volume dollars and highest seasonal average.
Right.
That's all he wants. Steinbrenner's also got to do a balancing act here. He historically has paid mega money. Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge. Steinbrenner, though, has to answer the question, are you going to give Soto more than you've given Aaron Judge? Soto's only been there 1 year, and Judge has had 3 straight 50-plus home run seasons and has become an icon and a really big citizen in doing stuff in the Big Apple in the community. So you're going to give Soto more than Judge, and Soto's only been there for a baseball season? Interesting. Met with the Mets. Steve Cohen, 5-man committee. They sales pitch Soto on who they are, what they've represented. By the way, it's the #1 market in Major League Baseball. And it's not just about your salary. It's going to be about all the endorsements if you become a megastar. And they talked about their history of player development and all the things the Mets have done going all the way back into the 1960s. I was told it was an impressive Mets sales pitch. And it's Steve Cohen, who's like your wife. Money's no problem.
Yeah, right.
In the checking account. Cohen's
Yeah,
going
right.
to make the big price. They met with the Red Sox. They brought all the heavy hitters led by Tom Werner, the CEO, Sam Kennedy, the president, their new general manager, and their manager flew in. They presented a portfolio. I've told the story often when Scott Boras goes to meet with you. 200-page portfolio about my client. I mean, it's got every conceivable statistic. Red Sox presented a portfolio of who they are, who they've signed, who they drafted, who they developed, and by the way, the history of Red Sox baseball going back to Ted Williams in 1941. I was told it was a really impressive pictorial portfolio of Fenway Park. So that's interesting. The Red Sox are obviously a player. The Dodgers had their meeting. It was rather just businesslike. All they needed to do was walk through the door, flash their World Series ring that they'd won a couple years ago, and understand what the next World Series ring is going to look like. They sales pitched Soto about the Dodger history, quote, the Dodger way of developing players through their farm system. The difference is the Dodgers are not willing to go more than 10 years. And even though Soto says, I'm not taking any Ohtani deferral money, I want every penny paid as the contract goes on, the Dodgers are willing to give him opt-outs. Come here for the first 5. And if you want to opt out and be a free agent again at age 31, we'll give you that leverage. So that makes it's a safety catch for the Dodgers. If he doesn't work out, he can opt out. Or if he does well, he can still opt out and get a payday. But the Dodgers are not on a hook for a 10-year and they're not going to give him a 13-year contract. The wild card to one is the Philadelphia Phillies. They introduced how they've spent money in the last decade when they become a marquee franchise in the National League. They got an issue, though. You got Soto going back to National League again. But you're going to pay Soto more than Bryce Harper, who's become the cornerstone personality of the franchise, who took less money, even though he was a Boris client, took less money to go to Philadelphia to leave money on the table so the Phillies could go get that pitching staff signed. So you're going to pay Soto more than Harper, considering what Harper did on behalf of the organization. So there's so many moving parts to this whole thing. And then to throw this out there, the New York Post, which does a lot of investigative reporting, wrote a story that Soto cold-shouldered a lot of people in the Yankee clubhouse during the course of the season, to the point it became a turnoff, even though he was having a great year. That everything that going on in Soto's galaxy was about Soto. It was about his business of baseball, insinuating he wasn't really a team guy. He was non-caring. There was no bonding. There was standoffish. And every time he spoke, it was like Scott Boras's junk was coming out of his mouth. So the New York Post, which does a lot of tabloid stuff, of the opinion, yeah, he's a talent, but is he a team guy? So I don't know if they're laying the foundation for a Yankee fan if Soto goes somewhere else. So, John, that's why I spent the whole bloody week. That's why I didn't talk to you all week, because I've been chasing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I just gave you details of the 5 to 6 teams that had the meetings and your responses.
Okay, there's a definitely different angles. First of all, I cannot blame Juan Soto at all for trying to get the most amount of money.
You're a flipping capitalist.
Of course I am. And
okay.
He should be able to cash in. But you need to do it with the right attitude. You got to be able to. It's not like it's all about me. It has to be win-win, right? It's got to be good for you and good for the organization and your teammates. It's got to be win-win. And Juan Soto doesn't seem like he thinks that way. This aloofness or standoffness, I mean, we saw that in San Diego.
You think?
Yeah. So, it's funny, though, how we all kind of assumed, the Yankees for sure, they're the ones that are going to get it, but maybe not. Maybe not.
All right, I'll just ask you quickly. You're Hal Steinbrenner. Would you pay him more after 1 year than you pay Aaron Judge?
Yeah. The market's different this year than it was last year or the year before. So he should command top dollar and get what he can. I mean, you could make an argument that maybe he should make as much as $70 million. I mean, that's what Ohtani's getting every year on a deferral. Okay.
You're the New York Mets. Money is no object to Steve Cohen. You have no problem with that.
Well, it's Cohen's money. If he wants to spend it on this guy, go for it. And I hope it ruins the Mets and they get saddled with a contract for 10 years. Just let him go and get his money.
Okay, so where does the history and legacy of clubs come into this play?
He doesn't care about that.
Fenway Park, Dodger Way, who the Phillies are, what they be. You're not paying any attention. You're negotiating the contract. You're taking the contract. You're going to sign your name on the contract. You don't care about that.
No. See, like if Juan Soto doesn't care about any of that, he doesn't care about history and who's that they've signed and everything else. He just says, show me the money. Now, I said his attitude is wrong. I mean, he's got to be looking for a win-win. I'm not sure he's willing to find the right compromise. You know,
What do you think about the New York Post story?
Like,
Cold shoulder.
confirms what we already know.
Okay. That's where we are. You're a baseball fan. You dive into the middle of this. I'll tell you, I wrote a column about this week on my website. It's so hard to be a general manager right now, dealing with that player, the free agency, the luxury tax, the pressure from the fans, the demands of the media for information.
Yeah.
AJ Preller, how do you like your damn job now?
Yeah, well, he's getting paid too.
Well, that's true. Okay. All things baseball. You got an opinion on Soto, the player, Soto, the person. Hey, that's why we're doing Fans Forum. That's why we added this to the content on this podcast. Can I fill up this chat box with opinions on the Yankees, Soto, and free agency? Oh, by the way, we have a few other topics on the table.
Just
John?
a few? Yeah.
John, we ready for NFL football? You're ready for Sunday?
I'm ready for it. You know, we even got a game tonight on Thursday.
Yeah, we got Pittsburgh and Cleveland on Thursday, and that's a renewal of the Bad Blood AFC North rivalry. Boy, some really good games this weekend in the National Football League. Chargers, Ravens. Chargers just checked off the box of beating somebody good when they survived Joe Burrow's 426-yard, 3-touchdown passing performance last weekend. And now walking into that stadium for Monday Night Football, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens. Justin Herbert has made all those kid wide receivers around him so good. They are now so dangerous offensively, and it's just not the quarterback. Justin Herbert has a quarterback rating now of 102. 13 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's just been unbelievable. He's got 2,186 yards passing, and most of that has come since the middle of the season. Here's a stat nobody pays attention to. Chargers have only 5 offensive turnovers this season.
Wow.
And we are in week 12. They've only turned it over 5 times. McConkey is averaging 14 yards per catch. Josh Palmer is averaging 15. Quentin Johnston is averaging 16 yards per reception. A lot of chunk plays. Bolt defense, although they gave up a ton of yards and points last Sunday, 34 sacks. They've allowed only 15 touchdowns in 10 games this season. And when you got the ball on third down, you have only a 32% conversion rate on third down against the Charger defense. Now,
Nice.
they're going to face Lamar Jackson. Here comes Baltimore. The Ravens quarterback running and throwing right now, 3,460 yards. That's a phenomenal statistic. And Lamar's got 27 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions on the season. Charger defense is going to look across the line of scrimmage and see a quarterback with a QB rating of 117. This late in the season to be at that number, that's staggering. And if it's not Lamar Jackson, it's Derrick Henry. He's averaging 6 yards per carry. He's got 1,185 yards on the ground. And their wide guys, the receivers, are averaging 13 yards per catch. Yeah, I'd say they're pretty dangerous. They're pretty explosive. They're going down the field. Baltimore's offense is averaging 430 yards per game, but they've lost 4 games. You say, how's that possible? Well, they're the young defense with injuries, struggling on the job, very inconsistent. They've given up 362 yards per game. So can you say throwing contest, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson? Is it Monday night yet? This is going to be a hell of a game.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah, but, you know, the rap on the Chargers used to be they couldn't stop the run. How are they going to stop Derrick Henry?
We'll find out on Monday night, won't we?
Yeah, we will.
I mean, I don't know that they can stop him. And by the way, they're going to have to spy on Lamar Jackson because his history is not only making plays down the field, he's gotten a lot better in terms of consistency going down the field. But you got to spy him because he's going to do this.
That's Derwin James's job, right?
Well, we think, but Derwin James got to cover tight ends and receivers too. I think, this chess match. Oh, and by the way, it's the Harbaugh Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
John Harbaugh has beaten Jim Harbaugh twice. I don't know if they can beat him a third time.
Well, one was a Super Bowl.
Yeah. He beat him twice in San Francisco. But the Chargers are prime. This is the best they've played under Jim Harbaugh. And Baltimore, this is the best offense I think John Harbaugh has ever had, even back to when they had Joe Flacco as a quarterback. I mean, this is
Joe Flacco.
This is well, he was pretty good once.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, stop laughing. This is a really dynamic offense that Baltimore's got. Like I said, is it Monday night yet? Okay, we got that game. Next game, 49ers, Green Bay. San Francisco is so beat up. Now, Christian McCaffrey, he had 109 all-purpose yards last week. Looks like he's getting back to where he was. They got all these injuries at wide receiver. Does not look like George Kittle can play this weekend at tight end, hamstring. Now, Brock Purdy's banged up. He's got a strained shoulder. They're going to really need CMC McCaffrey to have a big game, maybe to keep Jordan Love and those guys off the field. Wild card, ain't no sunshine Sunday in Green Bay, Lambeau Field. The weather up there, dude, winter has arrived. It is cold and it's wet. Might be rain, might be snow, but it's going to be wind. So the Niners are going to have to play not only the Packers and the quarterback, the Niners are going to have to play the weatherman. So that's a big game. Next big game, Arizona-Seattle. Tell you what, the Cardinals are surging. What a job Jonathan Gannon has done as head coach for a guy that was in trouble early in the season. Kyler Murray is just really a different quarterback right now because he's got people around him. He's making things happen offensively. Arizona's defense in the second year under Gannon has gotten progressively tougher and tougher. But that's Geno Smith, who's running and gunning at quarterback. And he's pushing to almost 3,000 total yards in offense as the Seahawks quarterback. Weird piece of this equation. They're having terrible weather in the Northwest with that atmospheric river storm. And that storm is going to go through the weekend. So they may be playing in Lumen Field in Seattle in the midst of rain and cold and raw. And the Seahawks have had to vacate their facility because it's been damaged because of the 75-mile-an-hour winds and all the rain and trees and everything. They have no power, no hot water in the Seahawk practice facility.
Oh, my God.
Yesterday, they practiced early on Wednesday morning before the storm got there. And as they were in meetings, everything fell apart. Power and everything, heat went away. Could not go there today. They're talking about going to Lumen Field to practice tomorrow. But this weather, it's one storm after another. It's rolling in off the coast. So it's pretty bad in Seattle. So you ask the question, game preparation? Are the Seahawks really going to be ready for this? Because all their meetings have been interrupted and their actual walkthroughs on the practice field been interrupted. What the hell's going to happen there? And then you got to play the game in all the elements. So keep an eye on that one. And the last one, huge game, Eagles-Rams. Rams under Matthew Stafford and this young defense are playing really hard. Now, they had the hot streak, then they got beat, but then they won again last week. The Rams look like a complete team, but the team they're playing is so damn dangerous. Jalen Hurts, it's going to be a throwing contest between he and Stafford. Can the Rams' young defense, which goes after the quarterback, create enough havoc to interrupt all the things that Jalen Hurts does, pass and run? And by the way, can you stop Saquon Barkley, who's the second leading rusher in the league and is averaging almost 6 yards per carry? So who gets who? Does the Ram defense get the quarterback, or does the quarterback get the Rams defense and ding them before they get to him? Rams, Eagles, that's going to be a really cool NFC game. So, John, those are marquee games in the NFL schedule. Pick 'em, pal. Go ahead. Tell me what you think.
Pick 'em, pal. Yeah, I mean, for the 49ers going to Green Bay, yeah, Jimmy G took them in the playoffs in the snow in Green Bay a few years back. So not to worry there. Isn't it fun to talk about the Arizona Cardinals? I mean, we don't never really get to talk about those guys, and they're in first place in the NFC West.
And they're hot.
Oh, yeah, they're red hot. I mean, so that's going to be fun to watch that game.
But that's up in the Pacific Northwest in the elements.
Yeah, and that's going to make it fun to watch. You know, that's going to make it exciting. And they don't have a like a kingdom to go, scurry into to get out of the weather. And then, yeah, Rams, Eagles, that should be fun. It'll be a fun game. I mean, but yeah, you figure the Eagles have got to be really heavy favorites in Philly.
Philly's playing really good ball. I mean, they've earned this record after a really bad start. And I'll tell you, they've just come together, and their defense has gotten progressively better and better. And the defense is really young. All those first, second, and third round draft picks, they're all playing. And they go get your quarterback, and they're intercepting passes. So, this game, it's probably going to be turnover after turnover, Rams versus the Eagles, but it's going to be fun to watch.
Do you think there's something going on with Jalen Hurts? Because remember, people are saying his passing game hasn't been as good, and he was making some odd throws in the game last week.
Well, he's forced some things a little bit, but that's him. He moves the pocket and he takes sacks, but that's because he moves the pocket and exposes himself, but he also makes plays off moving the pocket. What's different in Philadelphia? that heavy-duty running back who used to have New York Giants stapled on his driver's license. Saquon Barkley is big-time tough, big-time fast. I mean, he breaks runs, and once he gets to the second level, boom, it's chunk yards with him. So Rams go on their hands full. The Rams are playing. They are playing on the edge. They are so aggressive. They got so many athletes who can run. Thing is, do they have enough people that can cover all the things that Philadelphia's got? So a huge, huge weekend in the NFL. You're an NFL fan. Feel free to jump on board. Let's talk about the Chargers. Let's talk about the Ravens. Who do you think is going to win that? That Fans Forum chat box is open. One final NFL topic on the table here.
Bad news everywhere.
Oh, you're doom and gloom, aren't you? Let's just go through all the bad stuff that's happened. New York Jets are in unbelievable disarray. They fired Robert Saleh, the head coach, early. Now they've fired Joe Douglas, the general manager, who put together this awful lot of conversation. They're not even going to bring Aaron Rodgers back next year because he's just not the same quarterback and he's struggled. Why did Douglas get fired? Well, it's just not the Aaron Rodgers acquisition. It's the failure with former number one picks, quarterback Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold. And now the story that this owner, Woody Johnson, is meddled in everything in the Jets front office. I mean, if you want to be a football man, then you put in the hours to go be the general manager and player personnel director. But don't sit there in your Mercedes and dial up the cell phone and block this trade that your GM, who was hired to make this acquisition, has reports that he interceded, and prevented 3 different transactions from occurring. And they had the ugly holdout with the linebacker Hassan Reddick, who they got from the Eagles. Now we find out that he had agreed to a contract extension to get Reddick in camp, and then he reneged on it. And that's why Reddick's holdout lasted 8 weeks. And he's hardly contributed at all since the end of the holdout, lost all his money. The Jets are a disaster from top right back to bottom. Second team, New York Giants. This is pretty ugly. Now, I've heard athletes been at press conferences, talked to guys in locker rooms, guys who got demoted. And a lot of them get pissed. A lot of them get angry at the organization. A lot of them want out. I heard a lot of things. An hour ago, their quarterback, Daniel Jones, who's in the middle, he's got 2.5 years, $90 million still on his contract. He got demoted. He got demoted to 4th string.
4.
He's not even suiting up now. The Giants are going to start their backup quarterback, Tommy DeVito, the rest of the season. They're going to let Daniel Jones go, I guess, at the end of the season. The reason they're benching him now is, A, he's played poorly. The whole team is crap. But he's played poorly, and he's got a $25 million guarantee if he gets injured. That money counts towards next year, and he gets it. Giants are not going to do that. So in essence, the Giants are waving the white flag on the season. But I've heard a lot of players respond really harshly and badly. Daniel Jones held a press conference after practice today. It was right before we went on the air. I saw the video. Daniel Jones said, "I apologize for playing really poorly. I am going to support Tommy DeVito. We will turn this thing around. I do owe the fans and this organization better play." Now, he didn't say offensive line's been crap. You let Saquon Barkley go to the Philadelphia Eagles in the same division. I was pretty impressed. That being said, though, with all the money Daniel Jones has got, his record's 24-44, 70 games, 70 touchdowns, 40 picks, 50 fumbles in 70 games, and 208 sacks. That's just not all on him. It's a byproduct of how really bad the organization is. So you got the Giant situation. 49ers, I don't believe this. I don't buy it. But there's a lot of undercurrent of rumors that Kyle Shanahan has worn out his team and that he's worn out his welcome and he's lost his team emotionally. I don't necessarily buy that because they got so many injuries. They're obviously not the same football team they've been the last couple of years. But there's a critique that he's so bloody relentless in preparation and practice and all that. And his team's got so many people hurt. All their skill guys are hurt that he's just gashed them to the point that they're fatigued. They can't play anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens the back half of the schedule there. Cleveland Browns, Thursday night football, Pittsburgh Steelers, once upon a time. This rivalry is pretty damn fierce. I remember the rivalry when the Browns had Brian Sipe, our San Diego native, and they were really good. And the Steelers had Jack Lambert and company, and they were really nasty.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Terry Bradshaw and John Stallworth, and all those games were amazing. Anyhow, in Cleveland, worst start since they were 0-17 in 2017. The worst part of this conversation is it looks like the players have caved in. They gave up so many yards last week, and now they're 2-8 on the season. And I'll guarantee you, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers walking into that stadium in Cleveland tonight, and the weather's going to be rotten, I hear, walking into that stadium, it's a freaking grudge match. We're just going to repay some debts along the way. It's going to be really ugly in Cleveland. And in Jacksonville, miserable season. So much was expected. So many injuries. I hate to say it. It looks like they quit. Last week, Jaguars gave up 625 yards to the Detroit Lions.
Holy crap.
52 points. I mean, it was ugly. In the last 3 games, Jaguars have only 528 yards in offense in 3 games. That's not even 200 yards a game. And the last 3 games, they've given up 1,494 yards. That's almost 500 yards per game on defense.
Unbelievable.
Does the word quit kind of come into the conversation as it relates to the Jaguars? So those are other NFL storylines. Go ahead, John. Just walk through that minefield and tell me what you think.
It is a minefield. It just sucks to be a football fan in New York right now. You know?
Yeah, both sides.
I know. Well, at least the Bills are good if you want to root for them. But, when you talk about, what's the guy's name? It's not Woody Guthrie. It's
Woody Johnson.
Woody Johnson. Yeah. Woody Guthrie is like a folk singer or something. Yes. There's been a history of NFL owners that like to meddle, whether it's Al Davis or Jerry Jones, but isn't Jerry Jones though, like the GM, or doesn't he have some of that play?
He's the president, owner, GM, and he's the football guy. He played football and they had success. They've won 3 Super Bowls in Jerry Jones's time. That's different from who Woody Johnson is. Now, the Mara family goes all the way back to the 1930s, and they've been very loyal to all the people they've hired for the Giants. But this is a really bad spell they're going through right now, and they've made a lot of mistakes.
Well, you got to give credit to Daniel Jones for, accepting responsibility for his poor play. Yeah. Dude's still going to get paid, so he's probably going to be fine. But I wonder if Daniel Jones is going to surface somewhere else and then maybe be a better quarterback because he's got a better supporting cast.
This has really been bad. I mean, he's taken so many hits. He's had like 3 major injuries in the last 2 years because they had nobody around him to block for him, and they had no wide receivers. And they had Saquon Barkley, and Barkley had 1 year where he suffered a major knee injury, and then he becomes a free agent, and the Giants let him walk across the bridge to Philadelphia to play for the Eagles within the division. Oh, my God. Okay, so those are all the storylines around the National Football League. Hey, this podcast, we appeal to a lot of people from a lot of different locales in different cities. You got to comment, jump on board in the fans forum about one of these storylines we're talking about. I told you we had a ton of topics on the table. We're not done yet. We get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. John, you've dealt with them longer than I've dealt with them, and I was pleased with what I did when I got windows and doors. Just explain to the people who DIXIELINE are and how they can help you.
DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, been in San Diego for 100 years. A huge part of building housing projects throughout San Diego, but also your favorite local neighborhood hardware store. So if you want building materials, lumber, you need, faucets or, hardware, maybe you need power tools. They've got it all. They've got 9 locations in San Diego, and they just opened a new one up in Dana Point. Love these guys, DIXIELINE Lumber.
And the dumbass host is colorblind, and I talked to them about shades of different colors on paints. And I said, that's kind of a different shade of brown. And the guy said, Lee, that's green. So I'm telling you, if they got materials, and they can also act as your consultant, and they'll guide you along the way. Just remember the name because we use them. And when it comes time to do a project, home, office, back patio, by the pool, think of these guys, DIXIELINE Lumber.
Now the summer came, we can go everywhere. So let's take it to the beach. Girl, it's just you and me. Now the summer came, so we can go everywhere. Let's take it to the beach. Girl, it's just you and me. Now when the summer's here, maybe we can disappear.
Before we go to the second half of our Thursday podcast, going towards a great sports weekend, just a couple of notes. You've heard us use the term Fans Forum. If this is the first time you've been in the live stream, we allow you to participate at the end of the podcast. Just go to the chat box and punch up a question, make a comment in Fans Forum. If you like sports, I will invite you to check my website. I write on it every day of the week. It's a volume of sports information. You give me 5 minutes, I'll tell you every story there is in the world of sports globally. And when you go to the podcast or the website, there's an orange box right there. It's Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Doesn't matter where you live. Fill out the entry blank so you can then become part of the Insiders Group. You'll get text messages and emails about the different things we do. I'm still negotiating with John about having a Insiders Group holiday party where he buys shots of Jack Daniels for everybody who's part of the Insiders Group. We have to see what his limit on his expense account is. But just check my website every morning. It's there first thing in the morning with your cup of coffee. Check my website. Social media, you're on it. I'm on it. Everybody's on it. I want you to join my Twitter all-star team, X on X. Just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button, try to build that back up. Feel free to join us there. Want you to share, email everybody, tell them who we are, what we do, Mondays and Thursdays, 1 p.m. And want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel, because when you subscribe, then you get the alerts for some really unique content that we put up there lots of different days of the week, aside from just the podcast. So those are your marching orders. Once we're done here, there's some other things you can do on our behalf. I want you to give us a thumbs up, give us a 5-star rating, because I know we don't have very many followers who like us. They all listen because they want to see what we're going to say. But hey, 5-star rating, it helps us a great deal. John, we're ready. We got a lot of other topics on the table. Where do you want to go?
Hacksaw pimping the podcast. I love it. Okay, let's talk some college football here. Ray Lewis at the top of the list.
Yeah, let's just start. There's a coaching job open in his home state. Ray Lewis is applying for this job. Legendary Hall of Fame linebacker, Baltimore Ravens personality, consultant for the team, wants to become a head college coach. Knows everybody in football. He wants to do what Deion Sanders has just done at Colorado. Ray Lewis is applying for the Florida Atlantic head coaching job. I'll be fascinated to see if he becomes the next Deion, but it makes a lot of sense because he knows a lot of people, and maybe he comes in and fixes a mid-major program that has kind of stumbled and struggled. This is a really bad story. University of Hawaii. They've had a lot of trauma out there. Stadium was condemned. Aloha Stadium, historic stadium right next to Pearl Harbor, was condemned and closed. They had to move and play home games at a high school field. They have a lot of economic issues at the University of Hawaii. They had to pay travel subsidies for every team that would fly to come play a game in Honolulu. All of a sudden, the NIL showed up. They had to creative finance ways to keep their players. They're kind of a team without a conference. Now, they're going to the Mountain West Conference as a full-time member effective next season. But they fired their athletic director, and there's a huge uproar on the islands over this. His name was Craig Angelos. He was hired. He brought law and order to that athletic department. He brought in his own people, and they're the ones that have solved the Aloha Stadium construction issue. They're the ones that have raised a volume of money in the NIL. He's the one that specifically negotiated to the Mountain West take us as a full-time member. He's the one that negotiated out the subsidy fees they'd have to pay a San Diego State or Vermont or whomever was flying into Honolulu. He's done a hell of a job. He got fired. Got fired by the outgoing president 2 days ago without explanation, and the community's in shock. And the people that put together the NIL program say they will stop funding Hawaii athletics unless there's an explanation given as to why Angelos was removed from the job. So really ugly story in Hawaii. And Hawaii is such a beautiful place, and have had such a tough time athletically just because of their location, etc. That's a big thing. Big weekend college football. Indiana, ranked 5th in the country, will play Ohio State. Huge game in Columbus, Horseshoe. Curtis Rourke, transfer quarterback. Indiana has got the Hoosiers 10-0, ranked 5th in the country. They have not beaten Ohio State in 36 years. Ohio State's obviously got unbelievable depth and talent Indiana's doing this. I'm not going to say what smoke and mirrors because they are 10-0, but they're doing it with a bunch of transfers. But the Buckeyes have 3 of their starting 5 offensive linemen gone for the year with injuries. So that's a big issue. But they do have Will Howard, who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, transfer Kansas State quarterback for the Buckeyes. They do run the football. They do have gifted wide receivers. I guess we'll find out how good IU really is in Columbus. Indiana's gone 10-0, but they have not played a ranked team this season. And Ohio State is more than ranked. The other thing, once upon a time, this rivalry meant something. There's no electricity to this rivalry. This is stunning. I'm talking USC-UCLA this weekend. This used to be the finale of the season. This used to be for a lot of the marbles in what was the Pac-8, the Pac-10, then the Pac-12. It's like there's no excitement. Now, obviously, SC has got 5 losses. UCLA's got 6. Neither one has a home. There no longer is a Pac-12. They've gone to the Big Ten, and I don't know very many people. I know a hell of a lot of alums are real excited about this. But once upon a time, that was special. I mean, I broadcast when I did USC Trojan football. We played UCLA at the Coliseum in the 90,000. At the Rose Bowl, it was, I don't know, 72,000. I mean, it was electric. And this is coming from somebody who covered Ohio State, Michigan, in Ann Arbor, and Columbus, and I thought it was the greatest rivalry I'd ever seen. This, once upon a time, was an unbelievable rivalry. But right now, at this point in time, it sure does not seem to be that. So, John, that's what I got in my college football notebook. So is Ray Lewis going to be Neon Deion?
I love Deion Sanders and what he's doing. I mean, he's got a chance to get into the playoff, by the way, and maybe win the Big 12. And so it makes sense that guys like Ray Lewis are saying like, well, damn, I can do that, and I can transform maybe my home university or a university near where I live and turn them into a powerhouse. So good on you, Ray Lewis. And FAU, that's the team, the Owls, that played state in basketball, didn't they, in the Final Four? The Hawaii thing feels like a square peg round hole, doesn't it? I mean, it's just so hard to make that work in Hawaii.
It is. Geography's got a lot to do with it. Keeping the homeboys home has got a lot to do with it. The last really successful head coach Hawaii football had was June Jones. And he went in there with a run and shoot and did very well. And they've got one of their legendary quarterbacks, Tommy Chang, is now their head coach, and they're just really struggling to build anything, and they struggle keeping players on the island rather than guys who are going to Washington or Nebraska, whatever. Massive, massive challenge. I mean, I tend to think if it's funded properly, Hawaii could really be a cool location point for kids that want to go enjoy lifestyle and play football. And now that they got a conference membership back with the Mountain West, but man, they got so many infrastructure problems.
Yeah, and I remember I saw the stadium when the Aztecs played them, I think, like last year, and it is –
it's like an old high school stadium.
Was it high school or was it on the campus? But it was small potatoes, kind of a.
Well, it's an interim, and I broadcast from Aloha Stadium, and of course that was ancient. It was a beautiful facility right on the edge of Pearl Harbor. You go to the top of the press box, and you look out across the water, and that is Pearl Harbor. That's the Arizona Memorial. I mean, it's one of the most moving things I ever saw. And I did a San Diego State Hawaii game on the night of December 7th. It was the eeriest sensation I ever had because they had all the lights on the Arizona Memorial. But that being said, Hawaii's cool, but there's economics and there's geography. And I mean, I think it's a really tough administrative job right now. You got that. So what do you think about Indiana, Ohio State? Is this for real?
I love it. I mean, I just love IU having a moment here. And Ohio State fans are so damn cocky,
Oh, you think?
Because they've won so much. And so to have IU go into Columbus and knock them off would be fantastic theater. So I'm really hoping the Hoosiers can win.
Go dog. Trojans, Bruins, once upon a time to where it is now. That's hard to believe.
It's really strange. Yeah, it is strange. But both these programs are not like dominating the world. So I think maybe LA fans, they're spoiled by all their victories with the Dodgers and everything else that they're not paying attention.
College football fans forum chat box is open. You got an opinion, feel free to express it. I love 3-point shots. I love big games. And we saw some really cool basketball this week in San Diego.
Yeah, that Gonzaga game against State, it was competitive, but it kind of turned out the way I thought.
But here's the issue. Zags are pulverizing everybody. Yes, San Diego State gave up 80, but they didn't cave in. They made Gonzaga earn every bleeping basket along the way. I mean, it was even for the first 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gonzaga clamped the defense on San Diego State. The offense went away. San Diego State was 6 for 20 shooting. Zags had a 21-10 burst. They built a big lead. Actually, they pushed the lead out to 16 points. But the Aztecs just kept bringing kids in off the bench, kept grinding. They got the lead down to 7 twice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they couldn't get over the top. I thought San Diego State's kids grew up.
Yes.
I was very impressed with their tenacity on defense. Not a complete offensive basketball team right now. They stay free of injury, and they're going to get these 2 guards are going to come back. Tell you what, by the middle of the Mountain West season, excuse the language, they're going to be a bitch to play. Because I just think they've got a lot of components. Now, they're devoid of inside play right now, and I don't know how you fast forward the progress of Magoon Gwath and the transfer center, Jared Jones. That's the issue. Those guys played a lot of minutes, had a lot of fouls, played a lot of minutes, had 3 baskets and 3 rebounds. They need more from their bigs. Maybe Miles Heide is going to grow into that role to be an enforcer at 6'10" to help them. But boy, I like the perimeters. They got a lot of guys who can shoot threes. And if you shoot threes, you can stay in a lot of games. And conference is going to be hard. But I was so impressed with how hard they played and how tough their defense, and they did not cave against a team it's averaging. Now it's almost 100 points a game. The Zags are averaging. I think they're 5-0 on the season now. I mean, they're just smashing everybody. And they earned every bloody point that they got in that 80-point win over San Diego State. It was not easy at all. So I'm pleased for Brian Dutcher. I kind of really like all the different things that I saw. And John Riley says,
it was a great game. And like you say, they grew up. Gonzaga is going to probably win the national championship.
Final Four, baby.
They're loaded. And so they did a good job. Magoon Gwath is fun to watch, but he's still, like a toothpick out there. And so he gets raw, gets banged around. But, Pharaoh Compton had that cramp in his leg. And I think Miles Bird, a cramp caught up with him. It just wasn't the Aztecs' night. But BJ Davis looks good. I mean, I'm really like what I'm seeing from him. To your point, yeah, the Aztecs are going to be great when the Mountain West season gets going, but we need them to be good like next week.
It's going to be hard to be good next week because now they go play Creighton and their big gun forward, Cal Kenner. They're going to play Oregon. They're probably going to wind up with Arizona in the 3rd round game. That's as tough as it gets. You'd hate to think 4-game losing streak, but it's a growth process. And I still think that this is going to be a really good Mountain West team. And I'm so excited about Magoon. I just look at the potential athleticism, and he's just a young pup. You give him another year in a strength program and another year to work on fundamentals and technique. That's going to turn out to be a hell of a big man if they can keep him.
Yeah, I know. I saw the interview with Miles Heide because he's the roommate with Magoon Gwath, and he says, yeah, Magoon's constantly eating, try to put on the weight. And I think he's put on like 15 or 20 pounds, and he's still rail thin.
Exactly.
But he'll be a fun player to watch.
Last topic. You got to explain this one to me. Again, we're talking Southern Cal, UCLA. UCLA, Pauley Pavilion, Hall of Fame in that building. Beautiful facility. Unbelievable legacy and history. Coach Wooden and all the other great coaches that have been there. UCLA basketball is averaging this year with Mick Cronin, who's a hell of a coach and recruiter, 4,694 fans. UCLA basketball, 4,694.
Wow.
In a place that seats 12,000.
Wow.
USC with Musselman coming in the front door, bringing all of his cadre of contacts and transfers. USC is averaging 3,753 fans per game. Trojans. They can't make no treadway despite the popularity, the tenacity, and the resume of Eric Musselman. Doesn't it shock you what happened to UCLA and USC?
Well, it's just like, the football rivalry seems to be fading away. But who, as UCLA and USC hosted at home, and it probably cupcake games.
You can't get people to come in to play Mick Cronin at Pauley Pavilion.
Yeah, exactly.
They want payday. Nobody wants to do home and home. So with apologies in advance, I guess I understand you can't be excited playing Long Beach State and some of these other schools. The other problem is Mick Cronin, this came out of his mouth. This is not me. This came out of his mouth. UCLA fans, friends, and alums are pissed that there is no Pac-12 anymore because they'd get amped to face everybody in the Pac-12, the good Oregon teams or the Oregon State teams of the past, or when Washington was good under Romar, or what Stanford and Cal had been or could become. He said they're pissed. People don't like this move to the Big Ten.
Well, you don't want to face the Golden Gophers? Come on. So yeah, the fans have got to be upset, but you figure the fan base for college basketball is you got alumni, you got a lot of older people in the community, and the students. Where the hell are the students?
Nobody's coming to games. And by the way, down the road, down I-5, the House Arena.
Oh, yeah.
11,414 every minute, every day, every night, every home game. 11,414 compared to UCLA Pauley Pavilion crowds to what we got watching the Aztecs in the show at the end zone seats.
Yeah, that's a great environment, man. I mean, going to the games there via us is so fun. I really enjoy it.
Okay, so that's the latest there. You're into college basketball, your assessment of the Aztecs versus Gonzaga. Let's just jump around. Other hot topics on the table. Fans Forum, and your segment is coming up, so stay with us here. Got NBA hoops to talk about.
The 76ers and the Lakers. We got toxic team and big shooter.
Yeah, let's talk about the toxic team. A week and a half ago, we had the story about the confrontation between their starting center, Joel Embiid, and a longtime basketball writer from the Philadelphia Inquirer, who had written a column that I thought stepped over the line in terms of a personal attack, but he was making reference to Embiid, the personality, and Embiid trying to talk about his legacy in Philadelphia. And the columnist wrote, you ought to show up and work hard because I don't see any of that. And Embiid had a confrontation with the columnist, and not only was it curse words, but Embiid put his hands on, shoved the columnist, and Embiid wound up getting suspended for 3 games. So now Philadelphia, they're 2-12. Highest payroll Philadelphia's ever had, marquee guys, a lot of injuries, including Paul George, who got hurt again last night, as now may have a major knee injury. There was a team meeting the other night that lasted an hour after the game, and they yelled and screamed at each other post-game. Everybody out in the lobby heard it. And Tyrese Maxey, their lead point guard, got in Embiid's face, and he told him, we are tired of you being tardy for everything. Practice, walkthroughs, team meetings, social functions. You owe us. You owe these players in this room. You owe that coach. You owe the ownership to be a better person. And there was a big dialogue back and forth of screaming and yelling. So Tyrese Maxey, the lead point guard, who I think is a star in the making, telling Embiid, this is who you are. This is who we believe you are. Need to change it. And then I thought to myself, hell, that's the same thing that the columnist said about Embiid. Now his own teammates are calling him out.
Yeah.
So that's really ugly. They go out last night, they get beat again, and now Paul George goes down with what they fear is a significant knee injury. They think there's structural damage. So that's Philadelphia. That is a disaster. 2-12 with all those star players. Second item, I asked when they drafted him, is this the right guy? Because his ability to hit threes at the University of Tennessee is different from his ability to get the shots off in the NBA. And could he play any level of NBA defense? Because we're not talking about a guy with great foot quickness. Yeah, I guess I can apologize now to Connect. Dalton Connect, #1 pick, Tennessee Vols. He went off for 37 his last game.
Right on.
Hit 9 threes. Hey, Hacksaw, shut the bleep up. He's really played well to the point now, because of injuries, he's going to be their starting shooting forward. And if this kid can produce like this kid has produced last 4 games, it's like a light bulb went on. All of a sudden, he understood mechanics of getting a shot off versus not taking a bad shot. He's shooting 40% from the floor, from the threes, from the arc.
That's good.
In the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Tennessee's playing Middle Tennessee State. He's talking about doing as a good NBA guy. So he's playing pretty well. But the Lakers are dinged up. But they're off to a really good start at 11-4. Whether this keeps up remains to be seen, because Anthony Davis and LeBron are playing an awful lot of minutes. So you got Joel Embiid, you got Dalton Connect. And John Riley says,
Joel Embiid is a dog. I mean, what's he doing? You know, I mean, he's a smart guy. I mean, I follow him on Instagram and the process and everything he's all about. And he just seems to be in grudge mode for some reason. I mean, did someone piss him off or what happened?
I don't understand why you could act that way. You're making all this money. I mean, he's making in excess of $40 million a year.
Yeah.
It's on a second NBA contract. Granted, he's had knee problems, but that should not dictate missing meetings, showing up late for practice, showing up late for appointment. It's just, as Tyrese Maxey said, this is all the time. You owe us, them, the owners, the fans. You owe us better. I don't understand Embiid's mental outlook on life. Why would you do that considering you just got paid a volume of money because you earned it in your first contract? Weird.
Well, it's one thing if a sports writer gets into your head and starts giving you trouble. But when your teammates do it and you have like an intervention in the locker room, then hopefully this will wake him up and get him to change a bit, because he's too damn good of a player to see this 76er team not doing really well.
So Dalton Tinnick wants you to tell me I was wrong.
Nice to see a rookie, you know, all of a sudden, like you say, the light switch goes on and the Lakers really could use him to be a productive guy like that. So if he's in the starting rotation, who is not in the starting rotation?
Hachimura's hurt. Dinged.
Okay.
And they get some of their other guys are dinged too. But boy, if he can average double digits and hit critical threes, that makes somebody you got to defend, which means that's one less guy that might be defending King James or AD.
Remember back when the draft went down and there were all these guys being drafted out of France and everywhere else. Are there any of the other rookies like really off to good starts?
The French kids who went 1-2 are really scuffling, but they're young. Zach Risache, who was the #1 pick out of Atlanta, I think is shooting 28% from the floor. But that's a young big man playing against the bigs in the NBA. And Alex Sarr, I believe, Washington Wizards, who went #2, he's shooting maybe 25%. He's a little bit overwhelmed with the physicality down on the baseline. You're not turning and hitting shots against some other Slim Jim center. You're trying to go over the top of some of the best big men in the NBA. So that the top 2 picks are really scuffling and struggling. So we'll see. Connect has had 4 really good games in a row. Let's just see if this thing continues. Next topic.
NHL Notebook. We're going to talk a little Bruins firing, injuries, and trade.
This is a shocker. The Boston Bruins fired Jim Montgomery, their head coach. He led them to 65 wins a year ago. They got a bunch of internal problems. Montgomery, we don't know the inner workings as to why this happened. Montgomery was a former head coach in Dallas with the Stars and lost his job. He's a recovering alcoholic, but he said he learned so much about life. I don't know whether this plays into this equation. They were 8-9-2. Montgomery was having problems. He benched David Pasternak, one of his big scorers. He's had personality clashes this year with Brad Marchand, who's other superstar. They got a mess in goal. Jeremy Swayman, who was their hot goaltender last spring through the playoffs, held out all of camp so he could get a big payday. I gave you the statistics. If you're a good goaltender, your save percentage is .900. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Swayman's save percentage is .840. It's really bad. And he blasted Swayman. So I don't know if it's the erosion of him being sober or whether it's the erosion of his relationships with the most important players on the team. But he got fired. And I guess the thing that really shocks me, his career record in Boston, let me just pull this up. 120 wins, 41 losses, 23 ties, or 23 overtime losses. He won 120 games, and they fired him.
It's like firing Marty Schottenheimer.
Yeah, after a 14-2 season. Yeah. That's a good point. I had that there. Second story, Toronto Maple Leafs. We talked about this, about players going abroad to get help. Christian McCaffrey went to Germany for special stem cell injections for Achilles and heel and calf. Austin Matthews, the leading goal scorer, 60 goal scorer, Toronto Maple Leafs, went to Germany. He's being treated, we think, for a back or hip issue. He's been out for weeks and weeks. It just hasn't gotten better. So we believe he had a stem cell injection this week. They would hope they can get him back. Toronto is reeling. They got the highest payroll up against the cap in the NHL, and they can't keep their guys on the ice. Austin Matthews is hurt. Max Pacioretty, veteran center, he's down with what appears to be a real significant back-of-the-knee injury, and Max Domi went down with a thigh injury. So they got 3 of their top 6 guys on the front lines are out with injury. So Toronto is kind of reeling. Ducks. So that's what winning feels like. Anaheim, which has been down forever. The Ducks have now won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5. And all of a sudden, the kids that force-fed all these kids are starting to play better together. Cutter Gauthier, the college kid, number 1 pick that they traded for out of Philadelphia, comes back with a goal, and an assist, and the Ducks are starting to put it together. Now, the big issue is, can these kids continue to play? And we're still waiting for a couple of these other Duck players to kind of come around. The one that I want to see explode again is Trevor Zegras. He got hurt a year ago. He just hasn't been the same player. He's not potting goals anymore. They need Zegras to be a star. But they've won 3 in a row, 4 of their last 5. That's pretty impressive. And it looks like they are going to try to trade John Gibson, legendary goaltender. They broke him. He played in goal for so many games behind so many bad teams. He just physically and maybe even emotionally fell apart. He's off the injured list after having an appendectomy in camp. He's won his first 3 starts. He's kind of rotating with Luca Dostal. Dostal, of course, is the former San Diego Gold Star goaltender. Dostal has won that job. He's got a 2.69 goals against average. They are shopping John Gibson. They're going to have to pay a piece of the salary, though, because he's being paid as a superstar under his last contract. I was told that the Ducks are willing to pay $3 million of the $6.5 that's owed for the next 3 years each year. They can get a high draft pick for John Gibson. And there are teams, I was told Carolina and Columbus are desperate, and Edmonton possibly, although Edmonton would not take on the salary. But I think there's going to be a trade coming. Free John Gibson. He's going to go somewhere else. Looks like John Gibson is back. Can't get his job back, though, because the ex-Gull, Luca Dostal, is playing really well. So the Ducks, Orange Country, they kind of look like they're about to turn the corner with all these kids. We'll see if they can keep this up. But this is kind of fun to see them struggle, lose all these 1-goal games, and all of a sudden win 4 of their last 5. So, hockey fan, feel free. Oh, Canada Network, you're with us. Jump on board. You got a comment in hockey. John?
Loving the Ducks. Good for those guys. But you're talking about Austin Matthews, went to Germany, maybe stem cell. But you said McCaffrey went there. But didn't Kobe Bryant do that too?
Yeah, years ago with his Achilles.
Yeah. So what is it about this thing in Germany? Why is it only in Germany and not in America?
Because you would know this coming from your medical background. Who sanctions medical treatments? What's it's called in America? Department of, they sanction what medications are legal versus not legal.
The DEA.
DEA.
Yeah, they're like the drug enforcement guys.
Okay. I guess it's the DEA is not sanctioning the type of, I won't say it's experimental, but the type of stem cell treatments that athletes are going to Germany for. The Germans are the ones that have devised it. They treat track and field, Olympic stars. It's legal there, but here it's not recognized as being the proper way to treat athletes who have certain types of injuries. It's got to do with something, not sanctioning the stem cell. It's not illegal because it's there when their injection in the stem cell to help regenerate the health of the cells. It's legal in Germany. It's just not recognized by the medical hierarchy here in the States yet.
Yeah, it's just weird. I mean, you figure America has all the innovative medicine. It should be here. But the fact that they're going to Germany, it's almost like a script in a movie. You know, you have to go to some foreign country to get shot up.
It's like a cottage industry.
Yeah.
These athletes know about where there's unique and different forms of medical treatment. It's not illegal. I mean, NFL, Christian McCaffrey did it. NFL's not blocking McCaffrey from playing, but he's injured, and this is a different form of treatment. So Austin Matthews, 60-goal scorer, who's making mega money, he's evidently had it, and I think he's coming back. He may have practiced today with the Maple Leafs. No idea when he's going to play again. So that's kind of an intriguing story there. Okay, last topic on the table, late-breaking stories.
The Sports Wire. Who we got here? USA Soccer.
Blowout. Beat Jamaica. Beat them badly. USA qualifies to move on in the Nations League tournament. To quote Christian Pulisic, who was dominant at the attacking end, Liftoff. They have lifted off with Mauricio Pochettino's playbook, style, the personality. Attack, attack, attack. Team USA was pretty impressive against Jamaica. They never took their foot off Jamaica's throat. So this is a very different side right now that Team USA is putting on the soccer field. This was pretty impressive. I can't believe you did this. I just shook my head that you did this, that you bought this. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Fight versus fraud. Global streaming record. Was it J.C. Fields? A sucker's born every minute. Is that the correct quote?
No, that was P.T. Barnum.
P.T. Barnum.
Yeah.
Okay. Sucker. 108 million globally.
Yeah, good for those guys.
Watched Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, when the streaming wasn't buffering.
Yeah, it was that.
It was kind of a fiasco. The women's undercard, which were legitimate fights.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
All-time record globally. 78 million watched the women fights.
Cool.
Leading up to the main card. You know, America, I was thinking about you laughing about this. America loves to stop and look at a wreck on the freeway, don't they?
Oh, for sure.
So that's why there's 108 million globally. Want to watch this wreck, this fight. Would you call it Dancing with the Stars?
Well, it's a spectacle. The whole thing was a spectacle.
The whole thing was a fraud, but that's okay. If you want to spend your money on frauds, that's okay. I thought it might be a fight, but it wasn't a fight. It was a fraud. So Jake gets 40 million. Mike, who is broke, got 20 million.
Yeah.
10 million after taxes.
Yeah, hey, that ain't a bad night at the office.
So that all-time global record, although were you screaming at your computer or your phone because it kept buffering?
Oh, it was awful. You know, and I had to keep hitting the back button and restarting it, and it was awful. But, you know, it's cool how it's a worldwide audience and people all tuned in because of the greatness of Mike Tyson. Everyone knew Jake Paul was, you know, this social media guy, and I think most people wanted to see him get his ass kicked. But everyone just still remembers Mike Tyson being the baddest ass guy in the world, and he still is, even at the age of 58.
Auto wreck. Everybody stops to look at an auto wreck. That's what the hell this was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it was, and it's a spectacle. You just can't not watch it.
Okay, we do sports talk the way it should be done. We put a lot of topics on the table, express opinions, and at the end of the live stream podcast, we give you the opportunity. Fans Forum chat box is now open. Hey, don't be lame. Bring your A game if you're going to participate in my podcast. But this podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. The new one in Dana Point up in Orange County. You got projects for sometime in 2024 or into 2025. They got materials. They got ideas. They could be your best friend, your consultant. Dixieline Lumber. John? Yeah, I think there's a few people with opinions here on the topics on the table. Ready, set, go.
Okay, let's go to Emmanuel. He says, year one into the Big Ten, what grade do you give USC and UCLA? Also, who will be the 8th member of the Pac-12?
They're still trying to figure out who the 8th member is. It's got to be the right school. I'm sorry. I don't want Memphis. I don't want Tulane. They have nothing to do with West Coast athletics. Once upon a time, I thought maybe they could save Hawaii and Hawaii could save them, but that's not humanly possible at this point. If I were the Pac-12, I would just go back to the NCAA and say, we've gotten 7 football playing schools. We've added Gonzaga to our national brand in basketball. Give us a waiver and just let us compete with 7 football till we see what else changes going forward. If I had my druthers, if I could make a trade, I'd try to get BYU. But BYU is playing probably in the Big 12 championship game against Neon Deion, Coach Prime in Colorado. So, you know, BYU has really been a surprise, and Arizona State to a degree with what they've accomplished in the Big 12. In terms of the grades, I'd give USC probably a C for going to the Big Ten in football because they're not very good. They're not very complete. And I give UCLA maybe a D because that program has really fallen the aftermath of Chip Kelly. There's a lot of work to be done to save everything there at UCLA, rally them back. With apologies in advance, these guys ought to be bleeping back in the Pac-12. This should have never, ever happened. And John Riley says,
you're right. It shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. UCLA is going to get paid. I mean, they need money. I mean, for that athletic program. But, the eighth member, I don't know who's left, like Texas, San Antonio or something.
Pass.
I mean, like, who else is left?
Unless you lure SMU out of the ACC. And by the way, that's a fiasco. Cal Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference, SMU in the Atlantic Coast, they don't fit geographically, emotionally, structurally.
No.
Maybe SMU, but I don't even know that that's possible because SMU's, they're operating. They got a different payday than Cal and Stanford got. They got more money, but SMU's got more money than God. The amount of money they raised for them to do this, it's just been, I was told that the statistics, the amount of NIL money is just unbelievably fascinating.
Old oil money from Texas, maybe?
Oh, big time old money, but their money is good.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Okay, here's some more comments about UCLA and USC. This is from Joe. With two pro teams and two pro football teams and two pro basketball teams that are competitive, the USCLA and USC sports popularity took a big hit.
And they're not very good. And by the way, you failed to mention the guy with the ring, the Dodgers. So no, LA market is really different. So now you're correct in that assessment that the market, I'm not going to say it's crowded because it's a huge market statistically in terms of people who live in the region. But again, if you're not winning, I don't think you have a prayer. But these UCLA basketball numbers for a good program with a really good coach with a great track record of recruiting, Mick Cronin, that's kind of staggering to have just over 4,000 fans per game at Pauley Pavilion. I can't believe that. If Bill Walton were with us, he'd be screaming hell. Where the hell are the fans? But you got to win. And those two programs aren't winning right now.
Bill Walton. Yeah. I just love Bill Walton. The Conference of Champions. That's just horrible. He's just fantastic. Loved Bill Walton. So rest in peace, big man. But, when obviously UCLA, USC are longtime rivals, and you got the other Pac-12 schools went to the Big Ten, but I wonder if there's going to be new rivalries that are going to emerge, like, UCLA and Michigan State or something, that's going to capture people's attention.
Well, I think we've already seen one, Oregon, Ohio State. All of a sudden, that becomes a rivalry because of what happened at Autzen Stadium. Michigan's having a bit of a subpar season. Michigan gets back to being Michigan, then Michigan's going to have rivalry. Now, some other people have kind of fallen. Iowa's not what Iowa has been. Wisconsin has kind of lost some of its luster. So, I mean, there's so many other schools there that can get good again. But in terms of being anybody on the same level as Oregon, nah, not very many. Maybe Ohio State right now, and that's about it.
You think Oregon's going to win it all this year?
Yeah, they sure got a lot of firepower, a lot of talent, and a coach that's absolutely possessed.
Yeah, I think it'd be awesome if they did it.
Playoffs would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Joe. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to John. He goes, hey, you left out the biggest injury in the NHL. Alex Ovechkin out week to week, leading the NHL in goals at age 39.
Well, he took an accidental hit knee on knee. I don't think there was any violence in that. It just happened. And he's going to be out a week and a half or so. But, he's on a roll trying to catch Wayne Gretzky's career record goal scoring mark. So hopefully Ovi will be back within maybe 2 weeks max. But he's kind of found the fountain of youth. He's having a much better season this year than he's had in the last couple of years. So I still think there's some gas left in that tank.
So I think of old guys that play hockey. And who was the one that played for the Bruins forever? That was
Phil Esposito?
Was it? I don't know. There was one dude that played like into his 50s, didn't he?
Well, no, it's Gordie Howe.
Gordie Howe. That was the one.
No, that was Detroit Red Wings. Then he went to the World Hockey Association. He was unbelievable.
Okay. Pardon me. He was a Red Wing guy. But, it's interesting. In all professional sports, you get to your late 30s, and that's usually the end of the line. Unless you're in a special position like you're Tom Brady or you're Greg Maddux or someone like that you can finesse it at that age. But do you think that's what Ovechkin's been doing? It's more like brains over brawn?
No, he's big physical and he can still skate, and he's not had catastrophic injuries. Normally, when you're an older player, the wheels fall off. You got chronic knee problems or whatever. But Ovi has stayed free of a lot of major injuries, knee, shoulder, back, whatever. Gordie Howe is most unbelievable specimen I ever saw. When I got to Cleveland, the World Hockey Association, we had our opening game of the season was against the then Houston Aeros. Gordie Howe played there with his two sons, Mark and Marty. And Gordie was a monstrously big man. I mean, he was a weight training fanatic before weight training was a thing. And the favorite phrase I was always told by old-time hockey players was a Gordie Howe score sheet. That encompassed a Gordie Howe goal, a Gordie Howe assist, and a Gordie Howe fighting major. And he'd go into the corner, elbows up. And if you were in there going to the puck, he'd get the puck and he'd get you too. I mean, I saw him flatten people just the way he played. It wasn't cheap shot stuff, but he was so big and physical. So I was always look on the score sheet. That's a Gordie Howe score sheet.
What's the word for that? It's like ornery or something, like there's some guys that are just built that way,
That's
where
who he was.
they're tough, they're strong, they're resilient, and they're going to go they're going to, punch you in the nose. They're going to give you an elbow to the gut.
He was. If you try to retaliate, you'd pay a price. You might not pay a price that time, but the next shift, you might be in a crumbled heap in the corner. He was just big old guy from Floral, Saskatchewan. He was a monstrously big man.
Really?
And it's funny, his two sons, Mark and Marty, were skilled defensemen or wingers, but they were not built like him. I mean, he was built like a truck.
Wow.
With elbows.
Thank God that we have a professional sports career opportunity, because otherwise a guy like that would be like, working an oil rig or in a coal mine or something,
Yeah, that'd be an offensive guard in the National Football League.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's
monstrously big.
It's good to get these guys in. So.
John, thank you for joining us. Go ahead. Next one.
Okay. Let's go up here to the O-Siders. He says, heard talk about programs should be compensated for recruiting players from group of 5 schools. What would stop that program from putting that money into, say, a basketball program or pocketing the money?
Well, you don't pocket the money. I mean, everybody needs NIL money and creatively finance it. And he asked the question because I was the one that asked the question at the San Diego State press conference. And Sean Lewis totally came out of character. There was no more coach speak. There was no more trophies for just showing up to play a game that you got blown out in. He stepped out of his character and he talked about what needs to be done at the NCAA with the Power Fours helping the group of 5s. And he looked at me directly and said, Lee, if I recruit your son, because I believe he can be a player for the Aztecs, and we put our resources and he becomes a good player, and then suddenly somebody from a Power 4 comes and cherry picks him, USC, Washington, whomever, we should be compensated. Now, he didn't name what a dollar fee would be. He didn't say where the money would come from. Would it come from an NCAA pool? Would it come from the school that took my player, my son, off his roster? He said, we should be compensated so we can use that as NIL money to go get the next star that we can sign, develop, and grow. Now, he is aghast that he doesn't want the group of 5 conferences, the Mountain West, the Mid-American, all those. He doesn't want them to become feeders for the Power 4. But he says that's what the hell's going on right now. So he brought up this idea about compensate us if you're taking our players. That makes a lot of sense to me. Aztecs lost 12 players to Power 4 schools. There's a couple starting linemen at TCU. One of the star linemen at University of Washington was an Aztec. Ohio State star left tackle was an Aztec before he got hurt. So there have been good players here that these coaching staffs have built, developed, and got cherry-picked because the transfer portal allowed it to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, those guys are getting better opportunities, but you say 12 went up to better opportunities.
Yeah, 42 went into the portal total. And now some of those guys transferred to New Mexico or smaller schools, but 12 became starters in the Big Ten or what used to be the Pac-12, et cetera.
Well, I think a lot of those players think, that they're going to take a step up. But there's a lot of guys go in the portal and then no one even picks up the phone and calls them, and then suddenly career over.
Yeah, you got to be very careful if you're going to do that. Hey, good question. Oh, that's the explanation as to where that story came from, because I asked the questions at the Aztec press conference. Go ahead, John. Next question.
Okay, let's go to Bob here. He goes, connect, reaction.
Damn good. Thank you. So far, so good. I mean, 4 games, shooting 40% from the 3-point line. That's pretty impressive. Now, I will caution you, though, here, Bob. I mean, let's not order NBA Championship Series tickets yet. The more he plays, the more these coaches are going to look at things on video, and they will find a way to defend him, and then they will find a way to slow him down and take him out of his game, and then it'll be up to Dalton Connect to show how he can handle what's being done to him. So going forward, things are going to change. It's not going to be slam dunk 3-point shots all night, all week long. That's a really good, I'm just giving you the explanation of what life in the NBA, like in the NFL is. John's running up and down the hallway here. Hey, my rookie quarterback did really well. I said, yeah, see me in week 6 after they got video on him and see how they're blitzing him and how he's doing in week 7 of the NFL season. That's what this whole thing is all about.
Okay, so I got to go back to the hacksaw shtick reaction. I mean, I can picture Jim Rome saying that, but you would often say like, react to me, I mean, break that down for me.
Just historically, when you're doing sports talk radio, and we were the pioneers and we did it really well, everybody had an angle. Everybody had, as you would say, shtick. And I just came up with this off the top of my head because I always put hot topics on the table. And I would express opinions off the hot topics on the table. But the difference is I demanded that you get off your ass and get on the phone and give me your reaction to hot topics on the table. So obviously, Bob was a follower for a long time. He remembered that. React.
I think it's so cool, though, how your gloss creeps into Jim Rome, and Rome still uses it to this day.
It's okay. I got no problem.
But it's cool. I mean, because if you know the whole 690 backstory, it's like I kind of like was behind the curtain to a degree.
He knows all the backstories in the dirt. Thanks for the comment. Go ahead, move on.
Okay, let's go here to Randy River. He was talking about the Gordie Howe hat trick, and he says, yeah, goal, assist, and a fight. And then he went on to say 5 stars.
5 stars. Are you probably 5 stars Gordie Howe or 5 stars for Hacksaw and the guy from left field?
Well, I think he's talking about that for, but by the way, the 5-star thing is for Apple Podcasts, So if you go on the Apple, most people when they're listening to podcasts usually do on their iPhone, and you go there and we've got like about 22 or 23 people that have left us 5-star ratings, and about 7 or 8 that have left like a description and comments, and they're all very positive and they're wonderful. So if you want to support the podcast, that's how you can do it. So Randy, 5 stars. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's keep going here, and let's go to Jason. He goes, Merrill should have won. Ridiculous and beyond East Coast bias.
Not paying attention. So they're not paying attention because the Padres haven't won bleep in the history of the franchise. I mean, yeah, they went to the World Series. They were there and they were out of there pretty quickly in the 2 World Series they were at. And I have no beef with Paul Skeens. I mean, that's a phenomenal thing that young pitcher at LSU did after just a half year on the minor leagues. But that being said, that's 23 starts versus 154 games that this kid played. So I just thought the voting would have been a lot closer. And I don't know how many pro Mike Schultz fans there are out there, but for him to get 1 first place vote, considering what he accomplished, and then for Dave Roberts to accomplish what he did he had a great pitching staff. They were all on the operating table having surgeries and on the disabled list, and he got no votes. No first round votes, no second round votes. He only got 3/3. How's that possible? I know, Pat Murphy did a nice job, and he had a lot of obstruction in Milwaukee, and he got them to 93. But how does Dave Roberts get 0 recognition at all?
This is the whole thing just seems like it's orchestrated. It doesn't match logic, when you look at this whole thing. But I just want to talk a little bit about Merrill and whether or not I should have won the award, because there's always a problem comparing a position player with a pitcher. And, even in those rare times where a pitcher wins the MVP, like I think Clayton Kershaw did that once, right? You always hear this argument. The guy plays 1 out of every 5 days, and this guy's playing like nearly 162. It's apples and oranges. Do you think there should be 2 Rookie of the Year awards, 1 for pitcher, 1 for position?
No, because then you're watering down the whole field. Cy Young encompasses a whole pile of things. MVP encompasses a whole lot of things, but I don't think we should have a dividing line that we ban pitchers from being in the MVP thing or the Rookie of the Year thing, etc. So tough call.
Okay. Okay, let's keep moving here. We'll talk to David. He goes, Juan Soto's good, but I worry about a player like this who seems to be about the money. Very little outreach in New York. He'll be good, but you'll be limited to what you can acquire in future years.
Well, if he doesn't have injuries, he'll continue to play. He's age 26. He's still got a lot of good years left if he does not get hurt. There's a whole philosophical thing. I mean, he's an outsider. He played 1 season. Aaron Judge has become iconic. And I'm not saying he's better than Mickey Mantle or as popular as Mickey Mantle. He's obviously not Babe Ruth, but he's done some phenomenal things within, how can I say this, the academic educational community for the city schools. He's done a whole bunch of charity things.
Right on.
And dude has hit 50 home runs in a row, 3 straight years, and made himself a pretty good center fielder. Granted, he had a really bad World Series. But are you going to pay Soto more than you're paying him because Scott Boras wants you to pay more than you're giving Aaron Judge? Is that fair to Aaron Judge? And also, the Yankees don't want to cripple themselves. They got other needs. And you're going to pay somebody $45 to $50 million a year. Man, that eats up a lot of your budget space to go get other pitching, etc. And I know you can argue and say, well, Lee, it doesn't matter. You're in the number 1 market in the country, and the Steinbrenners are rich. Well, Steinbrenners don't want to pay luxury tax. The Steinbrenners want to reinvest in players. So, fine line, how much you pay him. I don't know that I'd pay him more than Judge at this point in time, but you don't want to lose him. But I would not accede to Scott Boras. I just have a problem. Boras does this with every client on every team. He doesn't give a crap about your roster, the fans, the ticket price. All he cares about is the volume of money he gets for the player and how it makes him look as a super agent. Mr. Capitalist, am I wrong or am I right?
You're right, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, to try to go out and get your value in the marketplace. So, Aaron Judge, I just want to make a comment. It's interesting because he grew up outside of Stockton.
Yeah.
And who grew up roughly kind of near that was Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
From the Central Valley in California.
Right.
There's 2 big boys, man, farm boys, that's what I think about. But Juan Soto, it's like, yeah, he racks up the numbers, but in a crunch moment, he'll take that walk rather than trying to hit a double or to drive in some runs, and I know this is a difficult comparison, but do you remember back in the 80s when Jack Clark used to give Tony Gwynn crap and said he's not a team guy, he only cares about his statistics, which we knew was BS. But do you see that Soto is like that?
No, because I don't think Soto is Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn hit 334, 360. The 1 year, 392. He's on base all the time. Now it's the responsibility of everybody else to drive him home. Soto obviously hits 280, and he had 41 home runs this season. And he's had some really good seasons as a young player. And he's got more power than Gwynn has. But Gwynn, to me, was much more consistently star status than Juan Soto is.
Yeah, Gwynn was just a good dude. He had the right attitude. And that's what Juan Soto is missing here. Because, Yankee fans are probably feeling like we've got to sign Soto. They gave up a lot to get him. He's the marquee guy. We're the Yankees. We get whoever we want. But yeah, what if he went to play for the Phillies or the Mets? The Yankees fans would be upset.
They would be. But the Yankees are simultaneously negotiating with Teoscar Hernandez of the Dodgers on a short 2 or 3 year deal. And the Yankees need outfield help. So Soto vacated, and the Yankees wound up with Blake Snell and Teoscar Hernandez. They'd be probably a better, deeper team. You wouldn't have Soto, but obviously you'd have a power-hitting outfielder who's a good team guy, and obviously a Cy Young Award frontline rotation guy to put next to Garrett Cole. So you're a Yankee fan in New York? Put that hot dog down, that Needix hot dog. Put that hot dog down, and would you rather have just Soto, or would you rather have the 2 free agents I just mentioned?
I take the 2 free agents over Soto because it's 2 for 1, and you need a pitching as well. I'm still hesitant about Juan Soto. We just got weird vibes when he was here in San Diego, even though he hit well.
Yeah, I'm in that clubhouse. I've dealt with that. I'm not sure that I didn't dislike him. I just didn't appreciate the aura, because every time I talked to him, the answer was almost as if Scott Boras was lecturing me. And I said, enough of this crap. But things change. I did not like dealing with Manny Machado early on because I just thought he was a punk. And everything the Baltimore guys told me, I was seeing in person. Everything that happened at Dodger Stadium. That's why he gets booed all the time. I was kind of seeing in person. Now he's evolved. He's changed.
Yes.
He's a more complete player now. So again, those of us who deal with these guys in that clubhouse, in that locker room, we just have different perceptions. And my perceptions may not be all correct. My perceptions may be off base some too, but he's a great player. But I'm just not giving him half of my salary cap because I know I got to put 25 guys on the field. I have to pay other guys. And you go into luxury tax, that's like pissing away a lot of money. You know, when the Padres 2 years ago, they had to pay a $40 million luxury tax because all the money A.J. Preller spent. That's $40 million that doesn't go into your organization for players. It's $40 million you give into the commissioner's office.
Well, but the Yankees, you know, they got their own network. We shouldn't cry too hard about the Yankee money problems. But you know what the big difference between Manny and Juan Soto is Manny plays defense. And Juan Soto is a disgrace out there in the corner outfield.
I didn't know there were landmines out in left field, but I guess there must be the way.
We saw it when he was playing here in San Diego.
All right. Hey, good comment, David. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, let's go here to Joseph. He goes, who will the Padres sign and then trade? Who will turn the Giants down? I want to talk to you, Rancho Bernardo.
Well, Rancho Bernardo says the Padres, I believe, are not going to get to 200 million payroll. There might be a bump from 169 where they were at the end of the season to maybe 180. I just don't think ownership is going to do this. I think ownership is raking in all this money to make up for all the money that Preller burned through in the Peter Seidler era. And they're not going to be shut out. They are going to make acquisitions because A.J. Preller always does make acquisitions. But I don't think in terms of marquee guy up front that they're going to wind up doing that. I've got a whole laundry list of potential free agents out there I think they should look at. That'll be another topic for maybe next week or the week before we go to the winter baseball meetings. We'll kind of break down some specifics. I mean, there's like 100 and I want to say it's at least 170 free agents out there now of all different levels. Aside from the superstars, there are mid-level guys that are pretty good ball players. AJ will find a way to do that. Now, whether or not he makes a trade, and I never rule that out that Garrett Crochet could come here, but the price will have to be paid, and he's got to pay a piece of Cronenworth's salary, or maybe he has to give up Campusano because the White Sox went 3-for-1 or 4-for-1, and Crochet's name is being mentioned everywhere. It's mentioned with the Mets, the Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, and the Dodgers. So the question is, what is AJ going to pay to make a deal? As we get to the winter baseball meetings that start the first week of December, we'll have more specifics as to who's available and what I think they're going to do.
AJ's cooking something up.
He always is.
He is. He's gonna, so did you see the piece of news about how the Padres now have Leonardo DeVries is now ranked higher than Ethan Salas?
Mm-hmm.
That surprised me.
No, because he's hitting. Salas is hitting 206 and struggled in Arizona Fall League. But Salas is a hell of a defensive catcher. And again, you can't equate anything at this young point of their career because this is 18-year-old versus 18-year-old. And in some cases, they force-fed them. That's why Salas is hitting 206 at AA. He's not a AA player at age 19 or 20. It's going to take some time. But this is where they're ranked right now at the lower level. The proof in the pudding will be what they do when they get to San Antonio in AA, what happens to them at AAA if it's El Paso, and how quickly they progress. So it's a little early to bet your money on can't miss.
Well, do you think one of those guys gets dealt, or do you think? Yeah,
I would not do it, but
because they don't got nothing else, like really in the minors besides those two main dudes.
No, they've got Campusano, who you could trade, but that means then you have no immediate catcher of the future. But he's got holes in his game. Cronenworth, but nobody wants 7 years, $70 million for Cronenworth. Oh, I happen to like Jake, and I think he's a grinder, and I think you need some of those characters in your everyday batting order. So only time will tell to see what else is out there. But trust me, A.J. Preller will do something.
Of course he will. That's what makes it fun.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, let's go here to Callan. He goes, would love for the MLB and NHL to go back to Montreal and Quebec City. Bring back the Expos and Nordiques.
Well, I don't think the NHL is going back to Quebec City. They've had opportunities in that brand new Olympic arena. But I think the fact that they're in the middle of renovation of Olympic Stadium, and Montreal is a much different marketplace now than it was back when they had the Expos. And I think there's well-heeled Canadian industrialists that would be ownership rather than who owned them before, the Bronfman family, the liquor and spirits people. It's just a different time, I think, in Canada as it relates to Canadian economy, as it relates to Canadian population, as it relates to the Canadian dollar versus the American dollar. A lot of people don't know that when you're in Canada, you pay your players in American dollars. So it's a different dollar figure than Canadian dollars. So We'll see. But Tampa's got a year to figure this out, or St. Petersburg's got a year to figure it out. And we'll see if the commissioner can help them find a way to get this done. If not, then maybe the franchise moves. But Nashville is out there. Nashville seems to really be on the front burner in terms of we have a minor league stadium that can be retrofitted to make it major league stadium. It'd be a great regional market in the Mid-South. So keep an eye on Nashville. I personally would love to see Montreal.
You know, it's interesting. Do you ever follow Super 70s Sports on X?
Once in a while.
He's actually pretty interesting, and he's brings up a lot of old school stuff in the 70s of sports. He loves the Expos, and he'll always kind of have this romantic love affair with the logo, you know, where the way that logo is broken down into, what is it? Montreal is an M, the little E was the Expo, and I think a B was baseball.
Yeah.
And it was cool how that's broken down, but it's fun to see people remember those old teams.
He was there the night Bill Stoneman threw the Montreal Expo no-hitter. That's all.
Yeah, you know, and it's just cool to have one of those hats or one of those jerseys, because not everyone understands it, but those that do understand it love it.
And they were pretty damn good for a while. The Gary Carter, Andre Dawson group.
Tim Raines.
Oh, hell yes.
I mean, Randy Johnson was there, and Pedro Martinez.
Yeah, they had a lot of really good young players. They did a great job. Dave Dombrowski had his start there as player personnel guy and general manager, and they were really good, but the cost of keeping players and the economy collapsed, and what happened in Canada versus the U.S. dollar, the Bronfman family just could not fund baseball as the free agent prices just continued to go up and up, and the stadium was falling apart, an Olympic Stadium, which is, what, 1976 Montreal Olympics? Yeah, that needed retrofit, and where was that money going to come from? So I think things were really different back then. They're different now, so
wasn't there one year that the Expos were going to be really good, but the strike kind of screwed them?
Yeah, Felipe Alou was the manager, and they got screwed.
Was that the 94 strike?
Yeah, was that why they wiped out the rest of the season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one.
They canceled the World Series and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were rocking and roll. They really had a good team.
And that's the one where Gwynn was, you know, pushing 400, I think. But then there was that strike in 81 as well, and that there's been a number of others. But I remember Montreal got screwed by that.
Exactly.
Remember Warren Cromartie? That's a name that goes back.
Great player.
Yeah.
Rusty Staub, Le Grand Orange.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, we know our stuff here. We're just not showing up in the last 15 minutes trying to masquerade as a talk show host. When you need to know, we got the info. Even him in left field comes up with these things. This is absolutely amazing. Hey, Callum, thanks for being with us. Let's do a couple more here.
Okay, let's go to Richard. He goes, Fans Forum. Hey, what's your reaction on what the Dodgers said on defeating San Diego on Mookie Betts' podcast?
It's really interesting because Dave Roberts was the first one. And now the players have followed up and kind of exclamation pointed what Dave Roberts said. Dave Roberts said our World Series was against San Diego. Atmosphere, the whole aura of what the Padres and Dodgers rivalry, quote, has become. And then the players have said the exact same thing, how cool the Petco Park atmosphere was. No, just don't bring it up. Please don't. I get an ache in my heart when I think of 24 straight shutout innings when they were one game away from going to the NLCS, which I thought they would have won, which would have put them in the World Series, which I think they probably could have won. And I'm not supposed to cheerlead for any team, but in this case, damn, the Padres were this close. And I thought this was the year, or next year has to be the year to be in the World Series.
So San Diego, you know, it's like Marlon McCree. I mean, we could go back, and the San Diego sports curse has just killed us, but it is nice for them to show respect to the Padres and that rival, because it was a legit rivalry, and it was clearly their most difficult opponent in the playoffs. So it's nice to hear that as a Padre fan, but still the Padres have got to beat the Dodgers.
You got to get there. That's all. You got to get there. It has to happen next season. It really does, because after that, then we're talking players 33, 34, 35. Guys are going to be 40 years of age or stuck with these long-term contracts that Preller gave up. It has to happen real quick. Let's do a couple more here before we go to social media.
Okay, here's one from Manny talking Dodgers. He says, Lee, the Dodgers should offer Juan Soto a 3-year, $210 million contract. Short-term deal is a plus for the Dodgers, and it allows Soto to be a free agent before he hits 30.
Not a bad call. As I've indicated, I was told that it might be a 10-year offer with a 5th year in which he could opt out, go back as a free agent at age 31. Now, there are ways to creatively finance it. I don't think historically, like the Dodgers are not giving out long-term contracts to any pitcher. They're not doing that anymore. And I think even though they did what they did with Ohtani, but that was creatively financed with deferrals, and they did take on Mookie, and they obviously got the Freeman contract. I just don't think they're willing to go 13 or 14 years with anybody, especially a Scott Boras client. That's novel. Whether or not those guys would do it, but do the math for me, John. 3 into 210 is what?
70.
They're not paying him $70 million. Not paying anybody $70 million, but they may go 3 years, 140, 3 years, maybe 150. But no, they're not given that dollar value.
Well, didn't I read somewhere that the Dodgers were out on the whole Soto thing, or are they very much in?
Well, I think they're in because they did have an extended meeting with Andrew Friedman, Stan Kasten, and all the baseball people with Scott Boras and Soto. But I was told that 10 years is the max, and to creatively do this, we'll let you opt out after 5 if you want to opt out and go back as a free agent at age 31. So that's kind of win-win. But then understanding Scott Boras, he wants volumes of money, and he wants the highest average forever. It's a big issue.
Show me the money.
Okay.
Show me the money.
One more.
Okay, let's go to get a social media one, and we'll squeeze it in. And let's go. Okay, let's go here. Let's talk a little Chargers. We haven't gotten to the Chargers yet. This is from Jody. It says, our run game will start to show up again now that teams have to respect Herbert and the rookie and their pass game. They kept saying we don't have a good enough receivers. Yes, we do. And they now know it is so that it will change how the offense plays. They will now be able to really make the defense have to think about things too much and make them mess up. The run and the pass games are both just fine. Give it time.
They are growing. Herbert has made those kid receivers really special. Those 3 receivers are averaging 14, 15, and 16 yards per catch, chunk plays down the field. I don't like the fact that the protection is still really shaky. Herbert's taken, I want to say 28 sacks maybe. He's taken a lot more hits. I don't understand why the offensive line with 3 number 1 picks is not better in total pass protection. Has Herbert busted some big runs? Yeah, because he's running for his life. And he had an incident last Sunday. I thought he was going to get hurt. He got twirled around in the pocket trying to avoid one blitzer. He turned, and another Bengal player was right there. Luckily, the Bengal player pulled off and hit him in the shoulder rather than plastering him and flattening him. Herbert could have gotten a concussion, could have really gotten hurt. That's a byproduct of what I think has been very inconsistent pass blocking and blitz pickup. Run the ball. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We'll say this, though. When we get to postseason, and the Chargers, I think, probably going to be a playoff team, when we're in postseason, you're not playing bad defenses anymore. You're playing big boys. And if they're scuffling and struggling to run the ball now, when you get to postseason, you're going to probably play some real damn good defenses. You think you're going to be able to run the ball then? So we'll see. But they're throwing it. And Herbert scares you. Herbert's a little bit like a young John Elway right now. Elway used to bust some runs, and he'd scare the hell out of defenses because you knew he was going to break containment, make a play down the field running, or make a play, pull up and throw it. Herbert can do that now. So you do have to pay attention to that.
When the sideline reporters get with the coach and they talk about in and out of the half, and a lot of times coaches in the NFL, they're loud, they're aggressive, they're talking about X and O's and what we need to do different. But when they interviewed Jim Harbaugh, it's a very different vibe. It's like he's not really paying attention, at least in that interview, talking about a lot of the minutia. He's always sort of talking about the energy, and how they're playing, what their mental approach is. It's amazing the culture change that Harbaugh's created with the Chargers.
That's who he is from a personality, intelligence standpoint. Some of his press conferences I've been on Zoom are just football, off on a tangent. He was asked about the Harbaugh Bowl with his brother and John and Jim competing and all that. He's talking football and what the Ravens are and how we've fixed everything with the Chargers. And, oh, by the way, this game on Monday night, that's my mother and father's anniversary. And he goes off on this tangent about his parents growing up and all the places they went in Kentucky, and unique guy. He's changed the culture. Got to keep the players healthy. I hope there's going to be an improvement going along the way here. So Monday night, it's going to be a good game.
Are LA fans warming up to the Chargers?
Well, the last home game, it was pretty electric there. So yeah, this game is going to be wild, I'm sure. It's going to be a lot of people wearing powder blues. So for the first time. Now, that's only based on how good you are and how deep in the playoffs you go, because if they get sidetracked, if this doesn't work out, it'll be the same old, because there's so many other things in LA to root for.
Yeah, maybe they'll go to a UCLA basketball game at Poly.
A lot of seats available. Good tickets still available. Okay. One more social media. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Let's this is typical of the Dodger fans that are dancing like peacocks. This is from Lino. He says, "You're still going to be a doormat, buddy, no matter what you get or what you do. It's all about Dodger baseball, homeboy, California love dog."
All right, Lino, that's okay. No problem rooting for your best team. That's great. That's a great organization. Dodger Way works. Be intrigued to see if they get Sasaki, because I think they're going to get Sasaki. But I'll tell you, they just met with Blake Snell. So, I mean, they're putting a lot of cards on the table. And that organization's calling card is pretty impressive. Who they are, what they've done, how they pay their players, how they treat their players, the culture of Dodger baseball. I mean, it's a great place. And until the Padres beat these guys, until the Padres get to the World Series and then start to do it consistently, the Padres will be running uphill against those guys. It can be done. They almost did it this time. They let it get away. So you have a right to walk around and flash your ring to us fans, because if it happens in San Diego, I guarantee you they'll be walking around flashing this ring here. Just admit for me one thing, Lino. They scared the hell out of you in the playoffs, didn't they? They had you.
They did. Well, here's like another comment, just so I'll bring up a quick one. And this is from Dodgers 34. He goes, "Shut up, little brothers." And so this whole thing. Now you hear me, I kind of make believe like I'm whining about this, but I love this. I love this smack talk. I love the rivalry. And they're probably going to say, "Oh, it's not really a rivalry. You guys don't matter." But it is a rivalry. And I love the smack talk. And, people have gotten on Dodger fans' case. A lot of people thought, "Oh, the Dodger fans are bullies and they're this or that." But man, I just love this. I just want the Padres to be able to return the punch.
We always ask that you use good faith language. So don't treat John Riley that way. Shut up, little brother. I'm sure he's making reference to you. Can't be making reference to the host.
People are convinced that you're a Padre fan or you're a Dodger fan or you're a Padre hater or a Dodger hater. They don't know what to make of you.
What it make to me is we do sports talk the way it should be done. That's why this podcast has been so much fun to do over the last, we're kind of moving towards our second year in operation. Hey, just a couple of reminders. You like what we do, give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating. We could really use that. You like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day of the week, first thing in the morning, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Get in line, join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. If I convince John to buy us shots of Jack Daniels, we'll have an Insiders Group staff meeting at a bar. We also want you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. That because we'll give you alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. If you go to DIXIELINE, just tell them, "Hey, Hacksaw sent me. Thanks for being part of his podcast." And we thank you for being with us. John, great sports weekend, starting with Thursday night football, college football showdown Saturday, Sunday. Is it Monday night yet?
Monday. We're looking forward to Monday. Now, tonight's game, is it in the Dog Pound? Is it in Cleveland?
It is in the Dog Pound.
Oh, so, the point spread's got to be like, 7 or 10 at least.
See if the Browns show up.
I hope it make it competitive. That should be a great rivalry.
It will be. Have a great sports weekend.
Same to you.
And thank you for joining us. Always great to have you on board. Tell your friends about what we do. Have yourself a great sports weekend, too, on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.